You know what the very best thing to do with the tomato is? Eat it. Y'all thought that was a trick question, didn't you? Or you thought I was going to give you some kind of elaborate recipe, but no. Best thing to do with the tomato is just to eat it. So today I'm going to do a taste test, or a taste comparison, so to speak, with 3 different tomatoes. We are going to do the Dr. Wyche's. You all hear me talk about this one a lot. Some people pronounce it Dr. Wyche's. It's spelled W-Y-C-H-E-S, I think. That is a yellow tomato. Isn't that beautiful? It's a gorgeous tomato. That is my very favorite yellow tomato to date. The next one we're going to do is one that's new to me this year. Look how deep red that is. Isn't that beautiful? Now, I have left that sitting on my counter for a few days too. This is called the Vintage Wine. And it's good. I've already tasted of it. But today we're going to do some comparison. And this was my favorite tomato before I tried the German Johnson. So year before last is when this was my very favorite tomato. This is called a Big Rainbow. And it is delicious. Do not get me wrong. It is definitely right at the top of my list. But I think the German Johnson surpassed it whenever I tried it. So the German Johnson is not in this taste comparison. Everybody already knows that's my favorite anyway. So today we're going to do a little comparison and taste all 3 of these. So I'm going to slice the Big Rainbow first. It is so beautiful on the inside, you won't believe it. Look at all that color. I can get it to focus right. There it goes. Isn't that beautiful? And the next one I'm going to slice is the Dr. Wyche's, or Wyche's, however you would like to say it. Look how beautiful that one is. It's just yellow through and through, but it is beautiful. Of course, I think all tomatoes are beautiful. And last, but certainly not least, the Vintage Wine. Look at the dark colors in that. That is so gorgeous. Okay, look at all that color. Okay, I've got it cut up into some bite-sized pieces here. And the first thing that I like to do when I taste tomatoes is take the first taste without any kind of seasoning at all. But my favorite way to eat it is with salt. So I think the first one that I'm going to try is going to be the Big Rainbow. So no salt. I've not had one of those since last year, and oh my gosh, those are so good. The striping through it makes it look beautiful, and then whenever you taste it, it just does not let you down. It is one of the sweeter slicer tomatoes that I eat. It is just absolutely delicious. It doesn't really have the flavor of a yellow tomato. It's kind of a mix between a really sweet red tomato and just a really mild tomato. It doesn't really have that classic yellow flavor, I don't think. So now we'll try a bite of that one with some salt. And after I do this video, I'm going to probably eat one of these whole tomatoes. The salt really just brings the flavor out in those. So delicious. Now I'm going to drink some water between tomatoes to try to give them each a fair shake. Okay. Next, I am going to do the Dr. Wyche's. That does have the classic yellow flavor of a yellow tomato. It is so good. It's such a mild flavor, but it is so delicious. It does not taste like any yellow tomato I've ever tasted. It tastes a lot better. So now I'm going to taste it again with some salt. Salt really brings out the flavor of tomatoes. That really is the best yellow tomato I've ever put in my mouth. I like to watch Jess on Roots and Refuge, and that is what she used to always say. That's the very best yellow tomato you'll ever put in your mouth. So that's why I ordered the seeds to start with, and she's right. That's the very best yellow tomato you will ever put in your mouth. Okay, moving on. Now we're going to try the vintage wine. Show you what it looks like. I think I've already showed you anyway. Okay, first taste without salt. And the vintage wine tastes like nothing you've ever tasted. It is like a mix between the smoky tomato flavor and sweet. It is so delicious. It is so complex in its flavors. It's just delicious. I'm going to try a bite with salt. Salt's really going to bring out the flavor of the smokiness in this. It's so good. That is so delicious. It is so hard to pick a favorite when they are so different. It's almost like not comparing apples to apples and oranges to oranges, so to speak. I know you've probably heard that terminology, because each one's flavor is so distinctly different than the one before. If I had to pick out a favorite between these three, I would probably pick the vintage wine, just because the flavors are so complex, and it's like you get just more than one flavor rushing in as soon as you take your first bite. It is so delicious. They all are. You cannot go wrong with any of these three tomatoes. So what's the very best thing you can do with a tomato? Eat it, y'all. So while I'm sitting here finishing off these tomatoes, let me give you another tip about tomatoes. So when you pick your tomatoes, if you pick them after we've had a big rain, then it's kind of like they pick up all of that water, and it kind of dilutes the flavor of the tomato. So the best time to pick a tomato is usually in the heat of the day. It doesn't have to be in the heat of the day, but if you wait until later in the day, that is when the flavors are at their highest. So if you'll pick a tomato during that time, you'll find that they taste a little bit better. And I'll tell you another thing that I have noticed in my tomatoes, and if my tomatoes are like that, I would have to think that everyone else's are probably the same. When you very first start getting the tomatoes from your tomato plants, I think that sometimes the very first ones that you pick are not always the best. I think the flavors develop more and more as that plant gets older and matures. I have found that to be true in the cherry tomatoes, and I have found that to be true in the slicers. So I would just assume that that is probably true in everyone's tomatoes. So if you pay attention to when you pick your tomato, and to give your tomato a fair shake, wait until the second or third time you've pulled one off of your tomato, I think that's when you will have your very best tomato. So good luck gardening, you all. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you all have a great day, and God bless you.